Hello and good evening to all of you. Welcome to this edition. Welcome to this edition of Intellectual Conversations. I'd like to welcome you again. Today is Dashera, and Dashera signifies the victory of good over evil. So I wish you all a very good Dashera, and let's start with our conversations. Before we start off, let me give you a brief background about Phoenix Literature Festival. Phoenix Literature Festival was developed as a platform for authors, for writers, for readers, and for all people who want to showcase their contribution in the field of literature. This is a platform which would like to go to the last mile of people in villages, in cities, and provide them a platform to showcase what they have. We conducted two very successful festivals last year and this year, and they were a tremendous success. Now we have decided to come with intellectual conversations with people on hot topics and debate issues so that people come to know and about those issues, and we are able to debate on those topics and get ideas from people who matter. So let us jump right into the conversations. Before that, I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have got three panelists today. The first panelist is Vikas Prakash Joshi. He's a writer by nature, not by choice. His writing started in school and college at 13, where his contributions were published in the school newsletters. And he won prizes in essay competitions. He wrote over 150 letters to prominent English newspapers in classes 9 and 10, winning 5 Letter of Week contests in leading newspapers and magazines before becoming newspaper columnist in Junior Herald at the age of just 18. His columns and short stories in Junior Herald reached tens of thousands of readers. He subsequently won awards in city, state, national, and then international level writing essay contests. His articles have been translated into languages like Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi, and German. He has a BA in English Literature from the Symbiosis College of Arts and Commerce, a postgraduate diploma in journalism from Asian College of Journalism, Chennai, and an MA in Development Studies from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. He has written for leading Indian publications like Karwan, The Wire, The Hindu, DNA, and reported from very diverse parts of India, from cities like Pune, Bangalore, rural Punjab, coastal Karnataka, Gujarat to Odisha. Vikas has been published in two anthologies, Inspired by Tagore, published by British Council UK, and Fables by the Cognition Tree, brought out by Cognition Tree. He's also written for and played a major role in bringing out a prestigious coffee table book, Gavakari Ikatra, Samruddhi Savatra, Villagers United for Prosperity, for Watershed Organization Trust, a leading Indian non-profit organization. Besides writing, he holds an advanced communication silver in public speaking from Toastmasters International and as model for Kalam Kaushal for a Jaipur-based clothing store, and Anjankya Jadhav, a leading fashion photographer. He hosts and runs Pune's first and only podcast on literature titled Literary Gupshup. He's based in Pune where he lives with his family. His first book is My Name in Cinnamon. He's now working on his second book for children, which I think should be published by next year. Our second panelist is Malushi Mahajan. Malushi Mahajan grew up in Dharamshala and started penning down poems when she was a preteen. By age 15, her short stories and poems were being featured regularly in the Tribune. She has contributed stories to various magazines and participated in poetry symposiums through the years. Her two novels in the Singh Sisters Adventure series, The Mystery of the Missing Buddha and Mystery of the Forbidden Fort, have garnered a rave reviews from readers and critics alike. Malushi is a hotel management graduate and holds a master's degree in English literature, trained in Tokyo. Surprisingly, she has been working for more than 15 years as a hospitality and spoken English trainer. Our third panelist is Nitin Kushalapa, all the way down south. Nitin was brought up in Bangalore, and since his grandfather lived in Coke, He used to visit him often. He was fascinated by the place and began reading about it a lot, and also developed a desire to tell its story. So he did. His book, Long Ago in Kurg, delves into the history of Kodagu in the modern era, beginning from the invasion of the British East India Company in 1834 and going all the way to the present day existence of the Kodagu district. Some of the interesting aspects of the book include the Kurg War of 1834, fought between the British and the Kurgs, the rebellion of 1837, where a pretender tried to claim the throne of Kodagu, and the Gandhian movement in Kodagu. History has always been a reigning passion for Nitin, who is a software engineer by profession. And apart from making apps for iPhones, blogs, sketches, he writes poetry and edits on Wikipedia. He has also written another book based on Kurg history, The Early Kugs, and is based on Kodagu mythology and history before 1600s. He doesn't plan and takes each day as it comes, but one thing is definite, he plans to write. Thank you so much again, and welcome to this
Thank you.
session of Intellectual Conversations.
Thank you, Anil.
Our
Thank you,
topic
Anil.
of the day, thank you.
Thanks, Anil.
Our topic of the day, impact of remote education on health. Since the COVID pandemic has happened, the world has been turned upside down. There are so many things that have happened to each and every individual on this planet of ours. For some, it has been an immediate effect. People have died, people have lost jobs. For some, it has been a gradual process over a period of time. Over a period of time. One of the things that has happened is there has been an impact on the education of children. What is the impact? How is the impact? And how it impacts children in the short term as well as the long term? Let us debate the topic. Our first panelist, Vikas, I'd like you to ask a question or a statement, if you like. Do you think that there has been an impact on children's health due to remote education? And if there has been, why?
Okay. So first of all, thank you, Anil, for asking this very good question. My own mother actually is a teacher, a retired teacher of English and Hindi. So I this question is very close to my heart. Uh, and I'm seeing her, and you have asked the question: Is there an impact? Definitely, there is an impact emotionally, psychologically, physically, and mentally. All four things are being impacted, and I would say the biggest impact is the biggest negative impact I feel is that the weak children, the children who before the pandemic were already somewhere lagging behind, they are now lagging behind, I think, even more. At least when the in-person classes were going on, there was like somewhere they could be reached out to. Now they can just put off the camera, they can say abhi network nahi hai. They can give these kind of things, and genuinely in some villages there is a problem of network. So there are myriad impacts on all fronts, but especially one big thing which has I have observed is the gap between the good and the not so good students. I think, and it's widening. That widening gap. How will we narrow the gap? You know, I think this is one big thing which strikes me.
Yeah, correct. Very rightly spoken, Vikas. Now, I'd like to ask the same question to Molshri. I am sure she must be having some more inputs because every personal experience is different and matters.
Yes, correct.
Molshri, your views on the subject.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question, Anil, and good evening, everyone. And I'm very happy to share it to you all. The question, the debate that we have tonight is, of course, very relevant. And I agree with Vikas when he says that, of course, there has been a huge impact on the students because of remote learning, remote education. Because I believe that education is not just about learning from the books, mugging up from the books. It is also about the entire experience of going to the school, meeting with your peers, and staying motivated and um, just to say that, from home we are doing online classes, that is not enough. There are many students who are not self motivated. Those are the ones who are further now demotivated because they don't even have the opportunity to meet the people that they used to see every day. So I do believe that there are physical impacts, there are social impacts, and of course there are mental impacts. Physical impact because the screen time has increased a lot. So you would hear students complaining about backaches or headaches, and the eyesight is suffering. So those are some of the physical impacts. The social impacts being that they are now devoid of the experiences that they had with their friends outside, and thus they you would in fact observe or must have heard, like I have, that the children initially became quite aggressive being confined to the home, to their own homes. They couldn't step out at all. So the social impact is also there, and of course the psychological or the mental impact, which is that anxiousness, that constant subconscious fear that what will happen. So the anxiousness is there, and of course which creates a lot of frustration and irritability in the child. So I think there has been an immense impact of this distant learning, no doubt.
Thank you, Maurshi. I think you gave a very broad perspective of the impact on children. Now, I'd like to go to Nitin. Nitin is from down south. People are usually, compared to north, at least, they used to spend, as it is, more screen time because they were more technologically and, in fact, are more technologically advanced. Laptops and mobiles have reached down to everybody there. So, what do you have to say about this impact on children? Is there any impact on children? Nitin?
Thank you, Anil. Hi, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank you all for this opportunity to speak in front of this audience. And yeah, regarding the topic of today, the impact that remote education has on the children of today. This impact, definitely it has an impact on uh, the physical health, the mental health, and the social health of the children of today. Now, with this pandemic, we have this new scenario of children not going to school and sitting at home and learning remotely. This concept has come up. It's become kind of relevant now. But this remote education, I think, in fact, this is the way it will be going forward. This will increase. In fact, people will children like we see these ads. We see these ads where there is all these remote education courses. There are many ads which keep coming these days. So definitely this is the way forward. Remote education is there. It's here to stay. So we cannot say no to remote education, but there is an impact on the health of the children, because even as IT professionals, we are always advised to limit our screen time. But when our children they have to uh, study remotely, this the same health effects that IT professionals face due to increased screen time. This will affect students as well. For example, they'll face um, eyesight problems, and then there'll be a general lack of physical exercise. There will be behavioral problems. They will be unable to um, get along with people, adjust people. The kind of schooling that we had back then, we learned we just didn't learn our studies and sports from school. We learned our social skills as well, like how we interact with our fellow students, how we interact with our teachers. These kind of social skills are what we learned in school. But our children, they don't, with this remote education, don't have this ability, this social ability. And there are cases where parents complain that their children are facing facing issues, social issues. Like as we know, they can with online classes they can always find excuses to skip classes, and there is instances of aggression and such other uh, behavioral issues. So definitely, this remote education, it is affecting the health. It will be affecting the health of our children. Saying this, I would say that we'll have to come up with ways to take care of our children's health. And again, this remote education, as of now, this is picking up in the urban areas, and in the rural areas. Like I travel a lot. I travel between urban and rural areas. So I find that in the rural areas, there are some people who are not able to afford these online education. Like they have to get the smartphones. They have to get laptops, computers, and without this infrastructure, they have not been able to catch up with this online education trend. So, yeah, the baseline is that remote education is there to stay, and it will grow with the years to come. We as parents, we have to take care of our. We have to come up with ways to ensure that our children's health is not affected. So, yeah, this is not something that.
Thank you, Nitin. Very wisely. Yeah, so very wisely spoken.
Thank you.
Absolutely a different perspective. Now, we have all agreed that the impact is on physical, mental, social health of children. But I'd like to know from all of you, and coming back to Malushri first, uh, uh, you see, the social impact of children nowadays, as it is before the pandemic, was also people were not, children were not socially mixing because of mobiles and laptops. Okay, and this pandemic has accelerated that rate of social mixing not being there among children. Okay, what has been the greatest impact? Is it physical, mental, social, psychological? What is the greatest impact that we should all be worried about? Malushri.
Um, yeah, Anil, I feel that the biggest impact has been psychological. And to be perfectly honest, I think the psychological effect has not just been on the students or the children, but adults alike. We have been in a constant state of anxiety since the pandemic started. That's the truth of the matter. We have been, if not worried about for ourselves, either for our parents or our loved ones, our kids, we've been constantly in a state of panic. The first thing that happened, or the first lockdown, proved to everybody that we need to stay indoors, including students. Many of them understood the the magnitude of the situation, and many didn't. The younger kids didn't understand why they are not being allowed to go outside and play. So imagine a child who's used to a playground time of, let's say, 2 hours, 1 hour, is now restricted to the home base, just looking at his or her parents all the time. So there's a sense of isolation that comes. It has come for everybody. It's not just for kids. It is for adults also. But a child in a growing age is now restricted at home. The sense of isolation also creates, an underlying depression or a feeling of being left alone or abandonment. Abandonment in the sense you are not able to see your friends at all. You're not able to see the people that you used to seeing. Your parents are telling you not to go outside. So I feel the psychological impact is the one that we should worry about the years to come. I want to point out here that when the pandemic started, we had this conversation in our society group where many of the mothers said that the kids are now becoming very aggressive because they don't get to go outside. And 1.5 year down the line, the
Yeah.
schools have started to reopen. And the same mothers had the discussion. Now the kids don't want to go to school. This is something that I was very surprised to hear, that there are many parents who don't want to send their kids to school because they're scared for their well-being, of course, but the students are also not very keen on going back to school because they're now used to staying at home in a comfort zone where mom is feeding them 3 times a day, and nobody's like running after them in sense that teachers are not really keeping an eye on them. So imagine the psychological effect in 1.5 years if the children have gone from not being happy staying at home to not being happy about the fact that they have to go to school. That goes to show that the impact has been
Correct.
psychological the most. So, and we need to really worry about that because what we take on in our psyche as a young person or a young adult or a child stays with us for the rest of our lives. That's my take on it.
Correct. Yeah, I think a very valid point. I had not heard this type of a perspective that children not going to school has is because of their psychological impact, which it's a very valid and a true statement, and very nicely put across. We have been talking about the negative impact, obviously, and nobody disagrees that there has not been a negative impact. But has there been any positive impact because of uh, this pandemic and because of this online education of children? On children, has there been any positive impact? I'd like to ask Vikas what are his views on this.
Yeah, Anil, yeah, thank you for this question. Well, I think that as they say that technology is a double-edged sword. It can be a boon and it can be a bane. So no technology is good or bad. It all depends how you use it. So I would say two positive things which I do observe, two good things which have come out of this workshop, or rather this entire online system of education is, first is online system of education has made it possible to teach a subject in a multi format way, rather than just you have a textbook and then you have a teacher and then she reads out something and then the class just listens. Now you can teach it in different methods. You can, for example, use a video. I mean, since my mom is a teacher and I've also been a teacher sometimes, different kids learn differently. Some learn visually, some prefer acting things out, some prefer, so this is one thing. There are multiple ways of compared to the what you call the chalk and blackboard method, where there is just one textbook and this is one thing.
Correct.
And the second major benefit which I see coming out of this system of education is typically students have the access to the teacher who teaches in their school, and then the quality of those teachers can vary a lot from school to school depending upon various factors. But my mom normally teaches in some very good schools, English medium schools of Pune, when in her career. Now she's tutoring kids who belong to very low income families. Some of them live in slum areas. Some of them live in villages in interior parts of Maharashtra. Now I'm sure, very confident that ordinary costs of time, such students would never have come anywhere near a classroom. It wouldn't have
Absolutely.
happened because it is totally different. So this has somewhere also created an opportunity for people to reach sections who normally just would have been bypassed. So I would say
Correct.
these two things. One is the technology enabling you to teach the same subject in multiple ways, and the second thing is teachers from a certain strata being able, or a certain background, or even I would say not even, if there's a very good maths teacher in Kerala and then there's a student in Punjab who's bad at maths, or there's a very good chemistry teacher in Ahmedabad,
Yeah.
or in Dharamshala, where also is from, and then she wants to reach out to say a student in, say, I don't know, Pune or Cochin. It would be unthinkable before, but now it can
Yeah,
happen.
absolutely.
So there are these two
Yeah,
things.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. So very, very rightly said, because any any dark cloud has got a silver lining. So there are positives also. We have to manage the negatives and go forward towards the positives. Nitin, I'd like to ask you. We all know that these are problems. Kids are facing problems, physical, psychological, mental. Now, what is the solution? We also know that moving forward, the pace at which online education, it will keep on happening. It will not go back. The pace will increase, in fact. Now, what are the solutions? How should we look after children's health, mental, physical, psychological? What are those things that, as parents, as educators, as school teachers, we should do so that we at least reduce the impact, if not completely take them away?
Yeah, Anil. So, as I said, this remote education it's there to stay, and we cannot. We have to adapt to it. So, the solutions that I can say is we'll have to, as parents, teachers, and the educational institutions, they have to ensure it is their responsibility to ensure that the screen time of children is limited. It's like we in the present age we have to depend on the um, on televisions, internet, computers, etc. We are all virtually online. So if we it's now with this remote education, the responsibility falls a lot on the parents. So they have to limit the screen time of the children, and they have to also ensure that their children actually go out and spend time playing, and children go out and spend time making friends. So they have to put in extra effort to ensure that children develop holistically, they develop overall. And this would apply to schools as well. Schools, as of now, at least in Bangalore and in some of the uh, states, students are actually now going to schools and colleges. So remote education, we cannot say that everything can be made remote, because there is always we the for the well-being of the kid, we have to ensure that they develop physically. They do a lot of physical exercise as well. They discipline themselves, and they develop their social skills as well. So the education system, as it is going into the remote mode, it has to ensure that children have to uh, develop, the educational system have to make ways to ensure that children develop physically and socially as well. So yeah, that is the way forward.
Thank you, Nitin. Obviously, everybody has to be a part of the solution. We had a national education policy. I think moving forward, we need to have some sort of government intervention or policy in place wherein the bad effects, can be reduced to some sort. One of the things that I think of is reading and writing books, because creativity is a major part of the mental well-being of children. Reading and writing books. Writing may be coming afterwards, but at the start, at least, reading the books is would play a major part in the mental well-being of children. So I'd like to ask Marushi, what does she think about it, and how parents and educators can help in providing solutions like reading and writing and other creative solutions, mental well-being of students is kept in mind and taken forward.
Okay, so I completely agree with you, Anil, when you say that, a creative um, outlet of some sort is required for every human being's, all round development. And when young adults or young kids start to read at a very young age, of course, um, they develop the reading habit, and of course, eventually, if they start to write, it's their choice. But reading habit is one of those habits that will never betray you in any sense. Okay, if you don't have the internet connection, it doesn't matter. The book is still there. um, so you can carry your books anywhere, and then you are just cut off from the world, and you can create your own world. So I believe that reading is one of the most beautiful habits that anybody can discover, not just kids, but anybody at any stage of their lives, because it is a world that you go into outside of your own real world, and which might, if not better, at least is different, and either is a revelation, is interesting, or sometimes, of course, soothes your heart. So at this point of time, when we are talking about the sense of isolation and anxiety, to inculcate the reading habit in children, I think would be a gift in itself. Start young and let them pick up the books that they want to read. Again, when we say, it's a very general thing to say inculcate the reading habit, but I believe that every person is different, every child is different. What one child would like to read, the other child might not like to read. So it's very important that there is a plethora of choices for the child to choose from. They can pick up what genre they want to follow, and then once they do that, let the parent encourage that, in this genre itself, possibly more and more books. What it will do for the child, I believe, is that they would cut off from the world that is so anxious right now, from the world that is kind of on the verge of, we are all confused. This topic itself is about remote learning. Is it the way forward? Is it the only way forward? Are we going back to schools? Are we going back to colleges? So in a world that is extremely confused about what is going to happen in the future, a book, or this habit of book reading, is going to definitely give you a sense of stability. The child is going to find stability and solace in reading a book that gives definite answers, right? So this is very important. Now, writing, of course, is an outlet, of course, which some people will discover, some won't. There are many kids who will choose maybe painting or singing or dancing as their creative outlet. Let it be that way, because we are all different people. But whatever the child chooses, the parents should just let them be. Let them enjoy what they do, be it reading, writing, dancing, or anything else. In fact, knitting, anything that makes them feel happy and gives them a world away from their own world at this point of time. And it will definitely help, because they say that it is sense of catharsis that we get when we create something, and it is so important to keep on doing that, and the earlier the better.
Yeah. So very wisely said, and you have put it very succinctly. This issue. In fact, since all the panelists have written or are in the process of writing children-specific books, children books for children, I think the perspective of writing a children book is very important from the author's point of view. Okay, and that is where Phoenix Literature Festival is also a platform which provides platform for young kids, children, as well as young adults to showcase their talent. Okay, in all, whether it's in writing, reading, or any other creative arts. So we are looking forward to having a children fest in December, which will give a platform to the children to showcase their talent. Now, this is a question to Vikas. He is writing a children book. I think that will be published mostly next year. So, what is that you keep in mind while writing the children book? Is there something additional that you keep in mind while writing a children to appeal to them? Is it something different? The psychological connect that you have with children, because children have got a vivid imagination. They think a bit differently than adults. Okay. So how do you write and how do you try to appeal to them?
Right. Yeah, Anil, that's a very actually good question. I remember, I will answer it a little differently. I remember when I was a small child, there used to be this World Book Fair near my home in Delhi. I used to live in Delhi, and my parents would always make it a point every year to buy children's books from different parts of India and even outside Poland, Iran, Russia, Greece, Italy, different countries. Now those books for me from different parts of the world, when I'm writing for children, to answer your question, what do I keep in mind? One very important thing I keep in mind is the children's book. Number one, I feel it should have certain messages. It should have certain content. It doesn't need to be. You don't need to put your point with a sledgehammer. You don't need to be preachy or to be didactic. But I firmly believe that in fiction, children understand much more than we give them credit for. And I feel as a children's writer, be it Malshri or be it Nitin or be it me or whoever, we all have a kind of a responsibility that we are shaping the young minds. So we must try to weave our messages into the story so that it is a natural part of the story. That is one thing I try to do. That's one thing I keep in mind, because I know that the child will get turned off by being told, okay, this is what I want to tell you. They get turned off. They immediately can pick up that you're moralizing. No, they close the book. And adults tend to be hypocritical. Even if they don't like the book, if you ask them, how is it? I would, अच्छा था यार, not bad. Kids are not so. If they don't like it, they say,
Correct.
"Bhai, no, sorry, not interested." बहुत बोर हुआ sir. It's like that. So you
Correct.
have
Correct.
to you have to be smart about how you put the messages. And the
Correct.
second point, which is very important to keep in mind with kids, is kids love richness. Now, by richness, what I mean is richness in language. Even a simple thing like food, but how you describe that food, you know, how you describe a particular experience the child goes. As children, you experience each and every small thing very vividly. And now you're an adult, you become a bit
Correct.
jaded. But as a child, the simple thing like punning, Peter Piper picked a peck. They love this. They love
Yeah.
vivid
Correct.
scenes, humor, especially finding humor in the most unexpected situations, the very least expected. Kids
Correct.
often like humor which makes
Absolutely.
no sense. Some situation which as an
Absolutely.
adult you would be like, okay, इसमें क्या है? But kids
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
So these 2 points, and third point I would definitely say is uh, the children's book must flow. There is one thing I've seen in all good children's books is with adult books you can go back here, go back there. You can go off on these philosophical ramblings about what I think about this and that, Dharamshala, Kur, this, that. With kids' books, it must flow from start to finish. There must be a flow. There must be a series of events, and you cannot ramble. Each thing must lead to the next thing, and
Correct.
they must be crisp. You don't have scope to uh, talk a lot. So I would say these
Yeah.
three things you have to keep in mind. One is positive messages, but delivered in a smart way. Second is richness of imagination, content, language, and third is the smoothness of the flow. These three things I keep in
Correct. Great. Great. I think you have put it very, very, very clearly and very well explained. Now, there's a question from Devi. This is specifically for Nitin, since he is a software engineer. So, what are those things? Because in online education, there is a lot of malpractices that happen. Because my wife is also a teacher, and people just switch off their cameras and they start looking at the book and answering the question. So, what are those things that could be done to see to it that malpractices don't happen? Since being a software engineer, maybe you can come up with some idea. Nitin.
Yes. So in the modern world, it's like we have technology all around us. We have as you know, we are addicted to internet, and when we Google everything we need. Like if we need a recipe, we Google it. If we need to know what's the cricket score, and we are at work, we Google it, and then so we are very much addicted to the internet. And then there's the social media as well. We use the WhatsApp, and then there's Facebook, and then there's Telegram, Instagram, the Facebook. So it's like we are bound to technology. In today's scenario, it's like we cannot live without technology. Watching parents, children also become like that. They get the kids who are like around the age of say 2 something like. They're just barely learning to walk and to talk. Such children, they keep pestering their parents to give them smartphones, and then they play games on the smartphones, and they get addicted to technology at an early age itself. So it's always advisable to try to keep technology, I mean such smartphones or televisions away from children as far as possible, and try to make them
So I think there is some problem with the network. There has been a problem with the network. So I think we'll carry on further. We would, to lighten up the mood, we would like to go to the next section, which is the rapid fire.
Oh,
I don't have a hamper with me, but the hamper is not there. But still, I think we can make it a very interesting. I'd like to move to Malushri. I'll I'll put forth a question, and you have to answer the question in one word only. And where there are more
okay.
than one words asked, you have to just maintain the two or three words. If I say that it has to be answered in 3 words, then you have to maintain the answer in 3 words only.
Okay.
So here goes the first question. Name any child hero from the Mahabharata.
From the Mahabharata, child hero. अरे हनुमान जी, छोटे हनुमान जी.
Correct, correct, correct. Which children book do you recommend for children?
I recommend The Blue Umbrella by Ruskin Bond.
Great, great. Name two of your books immediately.
The Mystery of the Missing Buddha and The Mystery of the Forbidden Fort.
Great, great. In one word, how would you describe Singh sisters, the main characters in your novel? In one word.
Uh, Sleuths.
Great, great. One children book you wish you had written.
Um, The Jewels of Chandipur
By?
by, I can't remember immediately, but The Jewels of Chandipur. Let me just think about the name.
Okay, great, 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 great. Very well answered, Malushri. We'll move to Vikas. Vikas, are you ready for the rapid round?
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
Vikas is connecting now. He's come on the screen. Here's your first question. Who was the central character in Malgudi Days written by R.K. Narayan?
This painter, right? I read the
So
book.
I'll give you the answer. Siddha is the main character in the 22 short stories in the collection Malgudi Days. Okay. Uh, this was a bit difficult, and a little bit more difficult is name two of Harry Potter's friends.
One is Hermione, and one is there's Hermione, and there is an Indian girl. Forget her name now. Hermione, I definitely remember.
And Ron Weasley.
Aaron Weasley.
Yeah, correct.
And,
Name three characters from your short stories immediately.
immediately, Cinnamon, Roshan Paranspe, and Rishikesh Paranspe.
Great, great, great. Name three short stories you have written.
Night Raid on the Kitchen, which is going to be translated into Sinhalese. Story of Mrs. Kadubole, which has been translated in the Serbian language, and my I Have My Own Face, which has been translated into Bengali.
Great, 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 great. When is your children's book coming out? Can we have a date and a
Well,
month?
tentatively, yeah, it was unfortunately it's been delayed by the very same thing which is brought us here today, which is COVID. But most probably it should be out by the first half of next year. Most probably,
Good, good,
we
good,
hope.
good. So I'd like to ask Malushri if she has got any book coming up.
No, I'm in the process of writing the third one, the Singh Sisters Adventures. So that will
Okay,
take some time. And I must add here,
good,
Anil,
good.
see the kind of psychological pressure you put on us that we went blank, right, Vikas? That is the kind of psychological pressure that we've been discussing. That kids get very anxious. Trust me, I got really anxious. And now I remember who wrote the Jewels of Chandipur. So I just want to add the Jewels of Chandipur, highly recommended by me by Mrs. Nilima Sinha. And that is one of the books
Okay,
that I read in my childhood, and one of those books that made me realize that an Indian author would create a lot of impact for Indian young adults. Because before that, we were only reading Hardy Boys and Nancy Drews. So that is the book
correct.
that I read as a child and realized that it is very much possible that a book written in my environment, a story set in my environment, and words like samosa and rajma chawal, all of that would be acceptable because here's another Indian author who's been able to do that. So I'm sorry I
Great,
forgot
great.
the
Thank
name,
you.
but here it is, really much enough.
Thank you, Malushri. Now, Nitin, we were in a rapid round, so I'd like to put you under that pressure, which Malushri was talking about. You have to answer the questions in one word, only one word. You can't go beyond one word. So, can we start the rapid round, Nitin?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
One place in
Yeah.
Kodagu children would love to visit.
Yeah. Sorry. Like I'm right now in a rural area, so the network is a little bad. I think by now you have realized it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'll try to catch up as much as I can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Apologies in
One
advance.
place in Kodagu children would like to visit. One place in Kodagu children would like to visit.
Um, the Nagarhole Wildlife Sanctuary.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Why a children's book after history books? One word. Why a
Sorry,
children's
can
book why a children's book after writing history books? Just one word.
because I like children. I like kids. So yeah, I like the company of kids. In fact, kind of
Good, good,
innocent and
good,
joyful, and they bring joy to the hearts of others. Yeah.
good, 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 good. Month in which your children book is coming next year. Just the month.
Sorry.
In which month is your children's book coming next year?
Probably September, second half of next year. Yeah.
Okay, good, good. Your favorite children author?
Ruskin Bond. I used to read Ruskin Bond since childhood, and
Great.
yeah, I used to read classics, a lot of classics during
Okay,
childhood.
good, good, good. Since you would like to keep the upcoming book in wraps till it comes out,
Yeah.
I'd just like you to describe in three adjectives your upcoming book. Three adjectives.
Fascinating, fantastic, and superb. And yeah, I
Great.
can also it's in wraps, but I can always describe it. I can I can describe it. So the book it's a collection of short stories. Uh,
Okay.
so these are actually moral stories, and these are um, traditional stories. These are meant for
Okay.
children. It's for the children's audience, and I am sure that children will love reading it. Yeah.
Good, 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 good. Great, great, great. So we have come to this rapid round, and the hamper goes to all of you. Thank you so much for this beautiful rapid route question. Now, I'd like to throw a question to whoever would like to answer this question. What is the most important thing when you write a children book? One important thing that you have to keep in mind, just the most important point, apart from the money, obviously, but that was on a lighter note. But what is that one important point?
Attention. You have to grab their attention.
Yeah, Malushri has raised her hand.
Yeah. So I think a children's book should have enthusiasm and hope. That is the most important thing. I don't believe in writing books that, of course, it is important to write books that deal with quite serious issues, but I also feel there should be enthusiasm and hope. And secondly, what shouldn't be there, I must point this out, I feel the use of demeaning words. Because what kids, for example, saying that so and so's nickname is Motu because this child is overweight or something. Because what a child reads in the book, he or she thinks that it is okay to use those words because they read it in a book. So for me, the thing that is most important to have is hope and enthusiasm. The most important to not have are the words that demean somebody.
Correct. Absolutely. Actually, that's a very valid point. Thank you so much for bringing that forward, and for the audience also, for all of us. That's a very, very valid and a very important point. No, book. This is the last question I think I'll be asking my panelists. What is that thing that you should do so that that children start reading books? Is there something that you can recommend parents and teachers that that children start reading books? Vikas, yes.
Yeah. Anil, I think it's a good question, and it's a very oft-asked question. In a sense, it often comes up, and even I think it's an age-old question because I remember even Ruskin Bond, the famous writer, said this. Before we ask about how can we get more kids to read books, rather than thinking in terms of how can we get, implying that okay, you don't want to do this, and we are going to somehow sort of bring you into it. I think the thing we should be is how can the parents show the child that reading is an enjoyable activity? Like if the child sees the parents reading, be it a newspaper, be it a book, be it something, they will also appreciate it. They will also somewhere. I remember as a child, I used to see my father and mother reading books quite a lot, and that influences you. And I think that would go a long way. And the second thing I do feel a bit strongly about this is there is a tendency which is there to kind of cut corners when it comes to children's books on the
Yeah.
the printing quality, the illustration quality. If you want more children to read books, they should please produce books which are also attractive, not just to read, but children's books should be attractive to hold, attractive to look at, attractive
Correct.
to sort of engage with. That's one of the things which I really observed with the Russian books I used to read as a child. They were very attractive. So these two things should be there. The parents should show the child, not by words. They need to see you reading. Parents, children see your example, not your words. You can tell a child all kinds of things, but
Yeah.
if
Yes.
they don't see it, and children are the sharpest, in the
Correct.
sense
Correct.
they really catch you if you don't do this or that. And second thing is, don't cut corners. Produce children's books which are really attractive, which have good illustrations, and which are well published, and I think you will attract children. Let me tell you, there's a hunger for reading. I don't believe in this thing that kids don't want to read. They want to read, but you need to do these two things. Reading needs to be cool. Kids are very oriented towards what is cool, what is hip. They always see, and what are the cool kids
Yeah.
doing? Okay, cool kids are doing this activity or that activity, chalo mujhe bhi karna hai na. So the cool kids, it needs to be cool, it needs to be hip. You can't just say to kids, you must read because I tell you to do so because it's good for you. Kids don't react well to it's good for you. I think these two things, I would say.
Yeah, I think a very very valid point. Actually, uh, they follow what their parents do and copy those things, those good things, whether they are good or bad thing. And one important thing which you brought up was the illustration. Illustration has to be very good because they get more children get attracted towards the illustration, and that's how they start. So I think that is those are very very important points that you brought forth. And I'd like to ask Malushri that the the printing that we have in India regarding children books, would that the quality of the printing is good enough to uh, for the children to go ahead and read? Do you find that up to the mark?
See, I wouldn't say that all publishers are not up to the mark. Generalization is something that is a very, it's not a fair thing to do, because there are publishers who do a very good job of printing, but of course there are who cut corners. Printing the page, the quality of the page, it shouldn't be like blotting paper, because I, as a child, I remember I used to underline new words and something that I liked, and if the ink goes right through the page, of course the child is going to be put off completely. Illustrations, like Vikas rightly pointed out, and he's been mentioning these Russian books. I've also read a lot of books, because we used to have school book fairs in our school, so we used to buy a lot of books at the time. And in fact, CBT, Children's Book Trust, used to have a lot of books in the book fair. So when you start out to publish a book that is meant solely for children, the illustrations and the printing quality shall be good. um, so it depends from publisher to publisher. It's not fair to generalize all, but of course it could be much much better. The illustrations, the colors, the quality of printing, the font size, all of that could be much much better. For example, my publisher, the second book that I published with Loxley Hall Publishing, their printing quality is really good, but I have seen books wherein it's not up to the mark.
Thank you, Malushri. I think we have come to the end of the session. I think Nitin has been facing a network issue, but I would like to thank from the bottom of my heart all the panelists, Malushri, Vikas, and Nitin, for a stimulating discussion we had. So Nitin is back. So I was just thanking everybody regarding the simulating discussion that we had. I think some very important points had come forth regarding the impact of remote education on children, and hearing it from children's author gives a completely new perspective to the whole thing. Some of the points that you brought in, I would not have thought about, and I'm sure viewers have also enjoyed this. So I'd request all the viewers to just share the video, like the video, and make it as popular as possible. I'd again like to thank Phoenix Literature Festival. I'd like to thank Malushri, Mahajan, Vikas, Prakash, and Nitin Kushalapa for this very wonderful interaction that we had today. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Anil.
giving us this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.